around the world, thank you so much for joining the call this morning. Wow. Hey, I'd like to thank everybody on the call this morning. Nakisha, the coach, Miss Kanara over in Japan. Thank you so much for joining us in Japan. Guys, let's see, what time is it in Japan? It's 1, 2. Wow. Yes. Wow. It's 2 o'clock. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining in Japan. Anna, down there in Texas, thank you for joining in. Miss Gray, part of the bakery group, thank you so much for joining in. Mr. Edmund Smith, thank you for joining in. Mr. Ismail, que pasó, senor? Thank you for joining in with his happy smile. Miss Pat Robinson in Oakland, California, thank you, dear, for being here. Miss Joyce Brewer, good morning. Miss Marcia Carter on the way to RD. There she goes. She's on the call today. Miss Natalie, thank you so much there in Las Vegas. Also, I would like to thank Mr. Sergio in Mexico. Thank you, senor. Also, Miss Tamara McDowell, thank you so much. Miss Tracy Tracy, okay, that's Tracy McDowell, part of the bakery organization. Mr. Winston Herbert, thank you so much. Miss Zoe Duffy, part of the bakery organization, and none other than himself, Mr. Brian Baker, regional director out of Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you, sir. Celia, thank you so much for joining. Mr. David Ransom, thank you so much. Mr. David Culver, thank you so much. Miss Dominic Young in Nashville, Tennessee, one of our school teachers, thank you. And the dynamite, Mr. Bill Bailey, that guy is always bringing new ideas with good thoughts, thank you, sir. Miss Belinda Batiste, good seeing you, always your lovely smile. Hey guys, ladies, we got a great call lined up today. I want to thank every one of you on the call. We've got, oh my goodness, there he is, I see him now, I see him, all right. We got none other that hails from Southern California, San Diego area. Man, the first time he did a call on Zoom call, I was envious of the background that he had in the background. Before I do that, hold it. Let me put the brakes on. Today is the end of the month. Today. Tomorrow is July 1. So that means we're more than halfway through the year. Our schedule is such, we're still doing Tuesday nights. Tonight, I'll be back tonight. Doing the 1 through 10 presentation. So get IBOs on there at 6 o'clock Pacific Coast time. I'll send a new schedule out for July shortly, but tonight, Wednesday night, and Thursday night, both nights at 6 o'clock p.m. Wednesday has a different number. Mr. Bree Clemens will probably have those posted in a second up on the site. But today, this young man hails from San Diego, California. The first time we did Zoom calls, when regular conference calls, Zoom calls, he did one. I was salivating at his view of the ocean from his place. And I mean this. Anyway, without further ado, he's a gentleman. He's a great leader. He has a heart for his daughter. That's his wife for doing this business. And you don't see a lot of men. My heart goes out because, he takes care of his daughter. He takes her to school. Now he homeschools her, but he is doing this for his daughter. And I tell you what, when I see men step up to the plate and be men, that overwhelms me in my heart. So without further ado, from San Diego, California, Regional Director, none other than the great Mr. Julian Lewis. Good morning, sir. Let's give him a hand. Let's give him a hand, everybody. Come on. There you go.
Where is he? There he is. Good morning. I appreciate the warm welcome. I want to say hello to everyone. Mr. Thomas, thank you for having me on. I just want to let you know, and I've said this before, some of you heard me say this, but it is a blessing to have Mr. Thomas in your corner. And what I mean by that is I want you to think about the climate that we are in today. I want you to think about how everyone's blaming everyone for everything, and no one wants to take responsibility for their own actions. And not only does Mr. Thomas take responsibility, but he goes out of his way to help those, not just in his organization, but anyone he sees that really wants it. And that is rare in 2020. And so to be able to have you, sir, as a mentor, as a friend, and someone who's just seen me through all of the stages of my business, I want to thank you and commend you for being a Renaissance man and the gentleman that you are, a father, not just to your own kids, but to a lot of us, mentoring us, and telling me when I'm wrong, telling me when I need to hear it, and that's part of it. And so thank you very much, guys. I want to get right into today's conference call. I have some information, exciting things, and I think it's important because of where we are right now. There's, we're in network marketing, And leaders are positive. And one thing I learned when I first started in this business is that you want to figure out how to be positive, and you want to do what you can no matter what the circumstance. So it doesn't matter. You can't control everything. Can we agree? But you can control what you do in the situation. And so I really want to talk about something that Mr. Thomas had me share years ago with the group, and I've shared it a few times. And I think it's really important today because it's a talk about Harriet Tubman. Okay, and some of you may have heard this, some of you may not, but Harriet Tubman, for those of you that don't know or familiar, I remember like yesterday, Ashlyn, actually, you were with me. You were with me in Texas when I heard this for the very first time, Mr. Bailey. And I remember hearing, I was sitting next to Bobby, okay? And I heard someone from in front of the stage say, how many of you have heard of Harriet Tubman? And the guy next to Bobby, not Bobby, but the guy next to him didn't raise his hand. And I looked at him and I leaned over Bobby, I nudged the guy and I said, what do you mean you've never heard of Harriet Tubman? And he started listening, and people started to lean in and listen. So I want to tell you, Harriet Tubman helped to free slaves during the time where my ancestors were slaves. And it was a crazy time. And if you can, I want you to think about this time. And don't worry, this is going to apply to ACN, I promise. But think about the time that we're in. Now, how many of you had a job like me when you first got started in ACN? Okay, so we're going to talk about Harriet Tubman. I want you to think about your own job as I explain mine. Prior to this business, senior systems engineer, 80 to 90 hours a week at my job, working salary. Now, for those of us in network marketing, we have a difference of perspective. A lot of you on here are thinking, wow, that sounds like slavery. Who besides me, because I did it, it's okay, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Who thinks that sounds kind of like slavery? Okay, so, but then why did I think I had a good job? Why did I think that I was doing well? And I'm not knocking jobs, I'm not, but why did I think I was doing well? Because I was conditioned by a system that taught me to go to school, get good grades, go to college, and get a degree. I remember Mr. Thomas saying a long time ago, the Bell system, from elementary school, exactly the way it works. You get and then all of a sudden you go to middle school, they take away recess, you can't play anymore, but they convince you that you don't want to play. Listen, as adults, we still want to play. But they convince you that you want to grow up, and then all of a sudden, now you get a break in the morning, and the break and a break at lunch, and you're conditioned by the bell, and then you go to high school, and then you're still conditioned. You have the same schedule as you usually do as a job. So I thought I was doing well. Everyone was giving me a pat on the back, 80 to 90 hours a week, and I probably would have stayed asleep if it weren't for what Mr. Thomas said. Me having my daughter. She woke me up. And the reason why I say that is because she made me realize that nothing was more important than the relationships and the connections that we create on this planet. And if whatever you have financially is stealing the precious time you have on this earth, then you want to rethink the way you make your money. And so back to the story, Harriet Tubman would go up to slaves and offer them their freedom. And by a show of hands, if you were a slave and Harriet Tubman came up to you and offered you your freedom, how many of you would go immediately? Okay, so if you're raising your hand, that's because hindsight is 20/20 vision. You're free in a sense, and I'll get back to that in a second, but you're free in a sense now, thinking about not being free back then, being able to see the differences, and with perspective, you can say immediately, I'll go. But let me ask you another question. What if your great-grandfather was a slave? What if your grandfather was a slave? What if your father, what if everyone that looked like you, talked like you, walked like you, thought like you were slaves? How could you conceive being free if no one around you was? See, freedom wouldn't look like reality. It would look like a delusion. It would look like a dream. And so when Harriet Tubman went up to slaves and offered them their freedom, the majority of slaves, they wouldn't go. They would say, "You're crazy. I'm not going with you anywhere. Don't you know what they do when they catch slaves? I might not be free, what you're saying free, but at least I'm surviving." And so the majority of them would turn their back on freedom because they were used to the situation and the circumstances that they found their entire community in. And as painful as that is, sometimes we find comfort in discomfort if it's popular. I need you to replay what I just said in your mind. And so she wouldn't get upset with those slaves. She wouldn't argue with those slaves because she was wanted dead or alive. If they said no, she would keep it pushing. She wasn't looking to convince a man or a woman that they needed to be free. She was only looking for the men and women that believed that they should be free. I want you to hear that. So she would go up to other slaves in the plantation and say, "Brother, you don't have to live this way. Belinda Batiste, you don't have to live this way. We're taking people to freedom. It might take you 6 to 8 months to get to Canada, but when you get there, you'll be able to own your own land. You'll be able to marry whoever you want to, but more importantly, your children will live free." You know what? Belinda would probably get excited, just like a lot of us would. But then she would go back into the plantation with her excitement and try to round up the people that she cared about, other slaves. And guess what? It's interesting how people we love act when we bring something to them that can free them. Those slaves would say, "You're crazy, Belinda. I don't know who you talk to, but you know us. And here's what we know. If you run, there's a good chance you'll die. We're not going with you anywhere. And matter of fact, Belinda, you need to stay here with us because at least you're alive. And at least we know that we can see you another day because you're surviving." And you know what those people out of love would do? They would convince Belinda to stay right there on the plantation with her. Oftentimes, it's the ones closest to us out of love that steal our dreams. And then Harriet Tubman would go up to other people. They would go up to Joyce Brewer and say, "Joyce, you don't have to live this way. We're taking people to freedom. It might take you 6 to 8 months to get there, but when you get there, you'll get your own land. You'll be able to marry whoever you want to, and more importantly, your children will live free." And Joyce would get excited. She'd get fired up. She'd go back into the plantation and try to round up the people that she cared about. And guess what? Those same people would say the same things to Joyce that they did to Belinda. They'd say, "You're crazy. Not only should you not go, we're not going. You need to stay put." But the difference is that Joyce would say, "Well, then you stay, I'll go, because I'd rather die for my freedom than live in captivity as a slave. And God forbid I have the same results for my children." See, 6 to 8 months later, they'd find themselves in Canada, being able to marry whoever they want to. More importantly, their children would live free. What did Joyce have to give up? If David went with Joyce, what would David have to give up? What would Winston have to give up? See, they'd have to change their thinking. You're a slave in your mind before your body shows up. That's the way it is in everything in your life. It's in your mindset first. And when your mind frees, the body has to go with it. And when they realized that they had a bigger vision than just being on that plantation, when they realized that death would not confine them anymore, I need you to hear that for a second. When they realized that they would either be free by getting to Canada or they would be free through death because they would not be a slave in life, they were able to be free. And you know, last September, we were in Detroit, Michigan. And I had a large young group there. Mr. Thomas, I don't know if you remember, but there was a lot of guys, a group that went in a van, drove 30 some odd hours. I rented a van. The week they got started, that Saturday before, they drove up in the van, and I said, "As important as this convention is, I need you to see a statue." And you guys can follow me on Instagram. You'll see that statue. We all took pictures next to the statue, and it's a statue of slaves looking across the Detroit River about to swim for their freedom. See, my very first convention that I can recall that I remember crystal clear was being in Detroit with Mr. Bailey. And you know what? Slaves would swim to their freedom. And if you look at the Detroit River, it's fast moving water. It's cold. They would either be free by death or free by getting out of this country. And here's what I need you to understand. Here's what's so crazy about the story. See, they interviewed Harriet Tubman in Canada, and they said, you must feel great about yourself. You freed hundreds of slaves. And you know what Harriet Tubman said? I would have freed thousands if they knew they were slaves. And see, for us, that's kind of hard to understand because of where we are as people. We don't understand, like, how would you not see the differences? How could you not see the discrepancies? See, but when you're used to a way of living, you don't see it because you're inside of the frame. You cannot see what's going on because you lack perspective. What's interesting is, the thing is, 90% of the plantation were slaves. 10% were the slave owners and masters. And here's what you would say. If those are able-bodied men and women, why wouldn't they overthrow the plantation? Can we agree? Whoever thought about it, like, why wouldn't they just get up and overthrow? Here's what's funny. Some did. That was taken out of our history books. Some did. But most didn't. And what you need to understand is, the reason why they didn't is because of generational thinking. 90% were slaves, 10% were the owners. And what's so ironic about that is that today, 10% of the country are still owners. 90% are still something. See, they didn't get rid of slaves. They just replaced it with the W-2, the wage earner, because you cannot tax a slave. Instead of trying to fight to keep people as property, as law, they changed the law to allow property to think that they're free. I need you to hear what I just said. Why do you think they call it human resources? See, when you start to realize that they just became a little more civilized in the way that they do it, instead of shackling you with physical chains, they shackle you with not being able to pay your bills. Having residual bills is your shackle now. When you don't have a residual income and you have a residual bill, that becomes your chain. When you don't have a residual income, but you have bills that come in and month out, whether you're sick, that becomes a chain. When you have to ask your boss for permission to go to your child's recital, when that's going to be a major impact in their life, and they say no, that becomes a chain. See, you got to understand, each link is designed that way for you to believe that you're free. The truth is, we are not free if we do not have residual income in this construct. We are free range. Well, what does that mean, free range? See, the best type of milk you get is from a free range cow. The best type of meat you get is from a free range cow. What do I mean? I mean, the cow thinks it's free because it can range freely. The cow doesn't see the fence. It can go and come as it pleases. It can choose where it grazes. It can choose where it hangs out. It can choose the group that it hangs out with. It can choose their own mate, but it's not free. It's free range. See, the farmer still does what it needs to, and it uses that cattle as resource. See, when you have a job in this country, you're free range. You can choose where you graze. You can choose where you pick happy hour. You can choose where you move. You can move and work and be employed in California or in Nevada. But every single Monday, you got to come back. See, these are choices. And it's up to us. It's up to us because our ancestors swam. And you might not be African American, but I promise you what my ancestors did made it possible for all of us to be free. We have the ability and we have the responsibility to do something greater. And what's amazing about ACN is grassroots freedom. See, it's not our job. You become Harriet Tubman. It's not our job to go out there and convince people that they need to be free. See, the reality is that you're going to meet people that are going to get excited. Just like I mentioned with Belinda, you're going to meet people that are going to get excited and they're going to say, oh my gosh, I knew there was a different way. ACN could be the thing that frees me. And then they're going to go back to their homes and they're going to meet family members over the phone and friends on Zoom that say, you're crazy. I know someone that did Amway 10 years ago and they're still paying for product. They're going to meet people that are saying, I know people that did those things. You need to run. Don't get involved. Those things don't work. And they're going to snatch their loved ones' dreams of being free right out from under them. But here's the beauty about being human. We're designed, it's in our DNA to be free. And you're going to come across people that want to be free, that don't care about what other people think, that are going to decide to go against the grain because they realize what's popular is usually wrong. The masses are usually wrong. Everyone else is arguing about what everyone else is doing. But in this situation that we're in right now, I don't care what you believe about COVID. I don't care what you believe about Black Lives Matter. I don't care about what you believe about the state of our nation right now. Here's what I do know. I know that my family is free. And because a lot of times we'll distract ourselves with conversations about what the left and right are doing because we don't have a conversation of our own. We don't have our own story. We're waking up and watching other people live out theirs in 2020. Why not live out yours? I'm hearing people talk about people that left the company. Why would I worry about people that left ACN when I'm in ACN right now? See, when I was a systems engineer, I had people that left our company, Bank of America. I could care less about who left Bank of America because that's what people do. People get married, they get divorced. People have friends, they lose friends, they change friends. I remember my daughter in 3rd grade upset about a girl who was angry because my daughter was sweet and people liked her more. And I said, baby, you're going to come across those people your whole life. You're going to either deal with her or change. Deal with her or let her go. And ACN is not for everyone, but here's what I do know. You got to decide that it's for you. You have to wear it on your sleeve. And when you do, things get different. See, I keep talking about Mr. Bailey because we go way back. Mr. Bailey was the first person that helped me launch my business. We're still here. We've seen a lot of people come and go. But if you make your decisions on what other people do, you will be constantly pulled. See, Jim Rohn said the wind of change blows on us all. It's not the wind, it's the set of your sail that determines your destination. See, when you realize that, then the wind, whatever the change is, whether it's a leader that came in or not, whether it's a new IVO that decided to quit, whether it's a new leader that's helping you create momentum, none of those things have anything to do with what you do. See, remember what I said in the very beginning in this conversation. The only thing that you can control is what you do. So what are you doing the last day of July or last day of June? What are you doing to go into July with a bang? What are you doing? As some people focus on the independence that they've had in this country and others are still fighting for independence right now, my question is, what are you doing to create independence for you and your family? We could talk about phones. We could talk about internet. Why though? ACN has already put every single training you need. My daughter could get on there and learn how to acquire customers. ACN has made it so easy. See, remember what I said earlier? We talk about all these other things because we don't want to go out and work. See, the only thing we do in ACN is talk to people. Only thing we do in ACN is share with people the opportunity and let them decide. And here's what I found. When you share it with enough people, you'll find people like you. When I'm not here, ask Mr. Bailey, ask Mr. Thomas, ask Mr. Bragg. I told every single one of them, if you quit, I'll still be here. Why would I say something like that? Is it because I don't love them? No. I see Black men that are for people, that are loving, that have families. Every time I see Mr. Bailey, his daughter met my daughter, and I still feel for him and what happened with him and his. I know the struggle that these men have gone through, and they've made the decision to be great. But your greatness comes from you making the decision through your struggles. So I pray that you decide to be great in ACN, because if you do, you're going to change a lot of lives who decide to align with you because you are leading by example. Don't forget, it's easy to be a slave. And what I mean by that in this country is everyone is doing it. Slavery is an equal opportunity right now. It doesn't care your background, your race, religion anymore. It's all about your choices. And so I implore you to choose to be great. So with that being said, Mr. Thomas, I appreciate you for allowing me to speak to everyone this morning. I thank you, Mr. Bailey, Mr. Bragg as well. He's not here. I thank you guys for doing everything that you do so that you could lay a foundation for people like me and people after me to run on and do something great with their lives. So God bless all of you. Thank you again.
Wow, wow, wow. Can we show Mr. Julian Lewis some love? Come on, y'all. Come on, let's show some love. Come on. Let's show it, let's show it, let's show it. Come on now. You know, it's got nothing to do with black or white. It's got nothing to do with that. It's got to do with understanding that you have been slaved up here in your mind to go to work 10, 20, 30 years, get that retirement insecurity check. Come on now. That's why I only had a job once my whole life. I only had a job once for 9 months. I never had a job since. When my billionaire mentors gave me the truth, they said, Al, my job is to keep out that trap. And so many people trying to keep you out that trap. Now, what you can do is go back and help people get out of that crap called a J-O-B, Journey of the Broke. My mentor said to me, do you know anybody got wealthy on a job? I go, heck no. He said a job designed for one thing, pay you just enough to stop you from quitting. And you do just enough to stop him from firing you. Yeah. It's not a black and white thing. It's a human thing. But until you escape, like he said, he's escaped. He's no longer, he's free range totally. Yeah. No more human resources. Ain't that crazy how they put those titles on you? Mr. Regional Director, Mr. Grossman, thank you so much for joining us. Regional Director, Mr. Curtis Evans, thanks so much for joining as well. Regional Director, Mr. Marvin Carter, thank you for joining in as well, a little late. Folks, I'm here to tell you, this is not a black and white. This is about people being chained to a J-O-B. So we have the antidote. We have the antidote. We have the antidote. We have the antidote. We have the antidote for the financial woes. And Mr. Julian Lewis, wow. Folks, he will be back with us next Tuesday. Mark your calendar. Next Tuesday, he'll be back again. Next Tuesday. Tomorrow morning, we got a surprise for you. I'm not going to say who it may be, because you know why? I don't even know yet. But you better believe it's going to be good. Man, we have been getting nothing but outstanding speakers to bless you. Now, all this information is great until you go do something with it. Lord have mercy. Mr. Julian Lewis, my friend, thank you for always, because you know that's my favorite story, the Harriet Tubman. Matter of fact, for the last couple of years, he gets on here, Mr. Thomas, what shall I talk about? I said, whatever you do, end it with Harriet, give me a little Harriet Tubman. And then the movie came out. I went to go see the movie twice because I want to help free more people. And like he said, she could have helped. We could as leaders help free more people on a job if they would just listen and get started with us. But it's like he said, it's that conditioning. My mama did it, my daddy did it, my pappy did it, my mammy. Oh my God. Folks, follow us. Follow us. Wow. Tomorrow morning is July 1st, a brand new month. We're already halfway through the year. How's your income looking? That means you got to work harder. Mr. Julian Lewis, once again, sir, thank you so much. Take care of that beautiful daughter of yours. Mr. Bill Bailey is always a champion. We just respect him so much. He's always putting IBOs on. Tomorrow morning, we'll be back. You guys be safe. And tonight at 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific Coast time tonight, I will be doing the 1 through 10. I'll be reading it. So get guests on here. If everybody got just one, not 2 or 3, I mean, it'd be great. Minimum 1, and get back on tonight at 6 o'clock for the presentation. God bless you all. I'll see you guys tonight at 6 o'clock. Be safe out there, Mr. Lewis. Thank you so much. My God. Show them some love, y'all. Wow. God bless you. Thank you, everybody. Be safe. See everybody later. Bye-bye.